Welcome everyone, this is DerekJ Speaks, and today we are talking about WWE SummerSlam 2023, highlighted by tribal combat with the undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns defending his championship against main event Jey Uso in a match that was very good, that was going very well, and the crowd was firmly into it. You had a lot of big spots, crazy spots, and a lot of good hope spots for Jey Uso to pull off the win. And it came down to those closing moments when Jey Uso disposed of Solo Sikoa, took him out, put him through the announce table, and had Roman dead to rights, got him in the ring, hit him with a spear, and went up top to hit him with an Uso splash, his second or third Uso splash onto Roman Reigns in the match. Had him right there, going for the 1, 2, 3, but instead, right at the last moment, a mysterious, hooded, masked-faced figure pulls Jey Uso from underneath the ring and pulls him to the outside. And he removes the hood and he pulls down his bandana covering his face to reveal himself to be Jimmy Uso. The same Jimmy Uso who was taken out about a month ago by Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa in that vicious attack on that episode of SmackDown. He has been gone ever since. And now he returned at SummerSlam to cost his brother, his twin brother, the Undisputed Universal Championship and his shot at becoming the Tribal Chief. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will admit, let me preface this by saying, there is a recency bias. The show just went off the air about 10 minutes ago. It's well past midnight. So this is fresh thoughts right now. Maybe weeks, months down the line, I'll come to regret saying this, but I'm going to say it right here in this moment. Ladies and gentlemen, I can only speak for myself when I say I believe the Bloodline storyline has officially jumped the shark. I had a feeling, had an inkling that this might happen, that this might end up being the finish of this match. Because on TV, you had Paul Heyman and you had Roman Reigns coming out pretty regularly blaming Jey Uso for the breakdown of the Bloodline and blaming Jey Uso for the attack on his brother Jimmy. It was the attack on Jimmy Uso that fueled Jey to come out and challenge Roman to this tribal combat match in the first place. But you had Paul Heyman on TV talking about how it was Jey's fault that Jimmy got attacked. You had Roman saying it was Jey's fault that Jimmy got attacked. So they were planting that seed. They were planting the seed right there. I think even Roman at one point in a promo mentioned the fact that Jey Uso was only the right-hand man in the first place because Jimmy Uso was hurt, implying that if Jey or if Jimmy were not hurt, then it would have been Jimmy's spot. They have also dropped other subtle hints to this. Before Money in the Bank, when Jey was conflicted, they dropped that little hint that Jey was set up to eventually become the tribal chief. He was next in line, and Jimmy did not necessarily approve of that. So they've been dropping hints at there being this subtle sense of jealousy from Jimmy Uso towards his brother. But still, I can't help but feel that this ending, this finish, this decision to have Jimmy Uso return on this show to cost his brother the match, I can't help but feel like this was done purely to get the reaction that they got from that crowd. You had a bunch of shocked faces. You had a bunch of boos. You had a bunch of fuck you, Jimmy chants from the crowd. So they were into that from that perspective. But I just have this feeling that that finish was done specifically for those reactions, for the shock value, for people to tweet out why Jimmy, why, and people to react the way that they did in the building and online. And I just struggle to see how or why they thought this was the best course of action to go with this story, with the evolution of this story. Because to me, it feels like a couple steps back in the development of this story. This bloodline story is supposed to advance, it's supposed to be pushed further, and it feels like this was just another twist in the road just for the sake of having a twist. Now, I cannot say one thing that I saw a few people saying on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. It's still Twitter to me, damn it. What I saw a lot of people saying is that this doesn't make any sense. I cannot say that it doesn't make any sense. Like I said, they've been planting the seeds of there being this underlying sense of jealousy from Jimmy towards Jey. Now, obviously, this is coming from Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. They're a bunch of heels, so they're going to say shit like that to get inside the babyfaces' heads. But sometimes the best heels always have a sense of truth behind what they're saying. And clearly there was some level of truth to what they were saying. And it was on full display over the course of this match here. Or at least through this finish. So it does make sense. The idea that Jey Uso winning this match and becoming the champion, along with that comes the idea of him becoming the new tribal chief of the family, the new leader of the family. Something that Jimmy Uso probably just cannot stomach. And I'm sure in his first big in-ring promo on SmackDown, whether it's this upcoming week or if it's the following week or whenever we get Jimmy Uso in the ring to talk about this and explain himself, I'm sure that will be something that will be mentioned. But even with that, I think back to WrestleMania earlier this year, specifically WrestleMania Night 2, where it was Cody Rhodes challenging Roman Reigns, and Solo Sikoa, who was banned from ringside, found his way back out there and hit Cody with a Samoan spike, and Roman speared him and got the win and retained his championship. Even with this story being where it is now, I still am not 100% into the idea and behind the idea that Roman Reigns retained his championship and Cody Rhodes didn't win at WrestleMania. I still feel like that was the wrong decision. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Jey Uso should have won this match because I did not think Jey Uso was winning this match. I didn't think Jey Uso stood a chance of winning this match. I said that in my Money in the Bank review. The reason he got the win in that match at Money in the Bank, the reason he pinned Roman Reigns in that match was because he was not going to win in the singles match at SummerSlam. And lo and behold, that's what happened. It's just this finish. It's Jey Uso getting screwed over by his own brother. It's that finish that just is really hard to explain fully. I didn't like it. I just feel like it really undoes a lot of the story development that was going on with these two characters in particular over the last few months. They got from under the wing of Roman Reigns all the abuse, all of the ridicule, all of the mistreatment that both of them have been facing for the last couple of years that were really building up more and more over the last few months. They finally broke away. In fact, it was Jimmy himself who was the one to break away first. And he basically had to convince his brother to join him in going against Roman and Solo and straying away from the bloodline and standing out on their own once again. That was the story there. And then Jimmy gets hurt and Jey Uso defends his brother's honor to take on Roman. And then we get to the pay-per-view and Jimmy costs Jey the championship. It's just a very tough, very bitter pill to swallow. And, for their sake, I really do hope that coming out of this, they come up with a very sensible reason, whether it's the promo, whatever story direction they go with this. I hope they already have come up with a very logical reason why this is the ending to this match and why this is going to be the story going forward. A Jimmy and Jey Uso feud coming out of this match. Probably a match at Payback. A very apropos name for that next show. But again, just sitting here in the moment, I did not necessarily enjoy that finish all that much. And that's just me. But I guess we'll see where this comes. That's not the only story thread that can come from this match. We also had a little bit of a tease of there being some dissension between Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. Of course, Solo did make an appearance in this match. He attacked Jey Uso at different points. He and Roman were attempting to hit Jey with their double combo finish where Solo hits the Samoan spike and Roman bounces off the ropes to hit the spear. When Roman bounced off the ropes to go for the spear, Jey Uso recovered and he pulled Solo into the line of fire, and Roman accidentally speared Solo Sikoa. Then a little bit later on, when Solo was attacking Jey, he got to the outside and Roman was leaned up against the barricade and he was basically holding his arm up, hoping that Solo would basically lift him up and help him up. But he did not do that. He did not lift up Roman, and he kind of stared at him, and the two of them kind of had a brief, very tense stare down between the two of them. So I thought that was a very interesting direction. And of course, nothing really came from it because immediately afterwards, Jey Uso speared Roman Reigns through the barricade. So that's a story I can get into. More dissension and more tension between Solo and Roman Reigns. That's a story that I can get into. That's something that makes a little more sense in my mind, other than Jimmy attacking his brother Jey and doing a Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso feud, which, while it does make somewhat sense on paper, I still look at it as cheap shock value for the sake of cheap shock value to get people talking. And I'm sure it will. I will put the thumbnail up and I'll put the title of this video talking about how Jimmy Uso screwed over Jey, and for people who didn't watch this show, they're going to look at that and they're going to be very interested in seeing what the hell happened. And, you know, I just feel like that's why they did this. And that's why they do most things. That's how you write your wrestling shows. I get that. I understand that. It's very hard to explain, but it just felt so lifeless and cheap. Like I said at the beginning, it feels like this was the jumping the shark moment for the Bloodline. This storyline that has dominated WWE television for several years now, with all the different twists and turns and ups and downs and the championships, the wins, the losses, all the cheating, all the shenanigans, all the ref bumps, everything that has taken place over these last couple of years with this Bloodline storyline. And it just felt like on this show in particular, with that finish, it just felt like they completely jumped the shark. And we may have witnessed this storyline going past its expiration date. Now, one has to wonder if Jimmy Uso is going to rejoin the Bloodline. That makes even less sense than him screwing over his brother. So hopefully that's not the direction they go in. Hopefully this is not leading to Jimmy rejoining the Bloodline. And hopefully, if anything, this is going to strictly be a Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso storyline separate from Roman and Heyman and Solo. Let the three of them move on to something else. There's plenty of people left on the SmackDown roster for Roman Reigns to feud with. There's a story already built in between Roman and Solo that can play itself out subtly over the next few months. You don't need Jimmy and Jey still rolling around with them. It's just like what Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. After a while, you got to separate them so they can do their own thing. Here, you got to separate Jimmy and Jey from this. So whatever this is going on between the two of them, I hope it does not involve Jimmy joining back up with the Bloodline. Because again, as little sense in my mind as it makes for this to be the direction they go in, it would make even less sense and it would be even dumber and even more of a sharp jumping moment if Jimmy just rejoins the Bloodline all over again. So that's my thoughts on that. That's my piece on that. We'll just have to live with it and see what they do. But that was not the only big newsworthy item coming out of this show. This was a top to bottom, pretty strong pay-per-view that had a lot of really good matches and a lot of big moments, including in the triple threat match for the WWE Women's Championship. Asuka defending her championship against Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair. This was a really good match. It was following a different really good championship match that we'll get to in a little bit. So they had to kind of fight from underneath to get the crowd invested in this match. But I thought this was a really good triple threat match. The story of this match revolved mainly around Bianca Belair and her injury. Now, while there was a lot of big stuff that happened in this match, the real turning point of this match was the point where Bianca got dumped over the top rope and landed out on the floor. But in doing so, there was a loud thud onto the announce steps, and you didn't get a great look at it, although they did show a couple replays, but you didn't really get a good, clear shot of it. But the idea was that Bianca, who was selling a knee injury over the course of this match, her knee slammed into the the steel steps, and her selling here was on point. She was in tears. She immediately grasped and was grabbing at her knee. You had officials come out to help her. My dead giveaway to this being a work and being a part of the story of the match was the fact that they kept focusing in on Bianca. When you're a wrestling fan for this long, you notice certain things. And when someone is legitimately injured, they're not going to focus the camera on them as prominently as they did here. So my immediate thought was Bianca is one hell of an actor, and Bianca is about to win this championship. The last few moments of this match, while I didn't see the exact finish coming, I could see where the direction was heading with this when Bianca was selling a knee injury earlier on in the match, and once we got this moment. So Bianca gets helped out. It's just down to Charlotte and Asuka, but it gets to a point where Bianca does valiantly return. She barely even left ringside, but she came crawling back, got back in the ring. Charlotte had Asuka locked in the figure 4, bridged up into the figure 8. Bianca came off the top rope, hit a 450. It was only good for a 2 count. I kind of wish that was the finish, but they came up with an even better finish that I actually did like. Charlotte had locked Bianca in the figure 4, and as she was bridging up to go into the figure 8, Asuka came back in, and while Charlotte was upside down, Asuka spit blue mist into the face and the eyes of Charlotte, and that took her down, but she still had Bianca in the figure 4 leg lock. So then Asuka came over, she attempted to kick Bianca in the face, Bianca ducked, she rolled up Asuka, all the while she's still locked in the figure 4, mind you. She rolls up Asuka and she gets the win. And just like that, Bianca Belair is once again the women's champion, but you just knew it was not going to last because a mere few seconds after this, we hear the theme music of Miss Money in the Bank, Io Sky, who comes darting out down to the ring. Bayley's with her. She has the briefcase, and she uses that briefcase as a weapon. She takes down Asuka, and she takes down Charlotte, gets in the ring. She starts squabbling and going back and forth with Bianca, and then Io comes in with the briefcase, smashes the knee, the injured knee of Bianca with it. The bell rings. Io goes up top, hits her big moonsault onto Bianca, and just like that, Io Sky is the brand new WWE Women's Champion. I thought this was one hell of a finish to this match here. I thought that this was a very cool moment. I thought that Charlotte was going to be the one to win the championship and get cashed in on, but I did believe, firmly did believe that someone was getting cashed in on, and while these three, Charlotte, Asuka, and Bianca were going to go out there and have a kick-ass match. None of them were going to walk out of here with the championship, and that's exactly what happened. So I thought the finish to the triple threat was very clever, and I really enjoyed the Money in the Bank cash-in moment, so good stuff from the women there. It was not the best match of the night. While it was a really good match, it was not the best match of the night, nor was it my favorite match. Those honors go to Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, who had a World Heavyweight Championship match on this show that I thought was damn good. Kind of got a little bit overbooked at the end with all the Judgment Day interference, but overall I really enjoyed this match between Rollins and Balor. But like I did mention, we did get some Judgment Day nonsense. Finn Balor, Mr. Money in the Bank, or Senior Money in the Bank, I should say, he came out with the briefcase in tow, and he was out there. At one point, Rollins got thrown into the ropes. The ref was distracted. The ref was not looking. Priest cold cocked him right in the face. Turned around. Balor hit Rollins with a pedigree of his own and laid him out, but it was only good for a 2 count. Soon after this, Dirty Dominic Mysterio, and Rhea Ripley, the Women's World Champion, they both came over to ringside, so they were out there as well. There was a little bit of squabbling between Finn Balor and Damian Priest. Priest had his briefcase, and he was on the apron offering the briefcase to Balor. Balor did not perceive this as a situation where Damian Priest was giving Balor the briefcase to use as a weapon. Instead, he was looking at this as Priest was attempting to cash in his briefcase. So this brief disagreement between the two of them was almost costly for Finn Balor here, as Rollins knocked Priest off the apron and then he hit a stomp on Balor, but it was only good for a 2 count. And then right after this, Rollins dove out to the outside onto Priest, took him out. He hit a stomp on Dom on the outside, took him out, got back in the ring. Finn Balor hit Rollins with a sling blade, and then he went up top, came down with the coup de grace, but it was only good for a very close 2 count. And so Dom is down, Rhea's standing over on one side. Priest gets back up. He's looking up in the ring at Balor, and he once again retrieves his briefcase, and he just casually dumps it right in the ring. And then he walks, does a full lap around the ring, goes over to the other side, gets up on the apron, attempting to distract the referee. His intention was to leave the briefcase there in the ring and distract the ref while Finn Balor goes to use it as a weapon on Rollins. However, Balor just was not quick enough. As he's scurrying over to get the briefcase, Rollins is just a little bit quicker, and he stomps Balor's face right into the briefcase, and then he gets the 1, 2, 3. Seth Rollins is still the World Heavyweight Champion, and there is more internal strife among the members of the Judgment Day, particularly Damian Priest and Finn Balor. And I thought that was a very cool way to advance this storyline, and I thought as an overall match between Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, they had what I believe to be the best match on the entire show. Another match I liked on this show was, shocking to me, a Brock Lesnar match, because quite frankly, overall, I have not enjoyed a whole lot of Brock Lesnar singles matches on pay-per-view in the last couple of years. But here tonight, we had a pretty good one. It was very brutal and uncomfortable, but I did enjoy it. It was Brock Lesnar versus Cody Rhodes, the third match in this saga between these two men that we don't know why it started in the first place, because we never got a reason from Brock Lesnar as to why he attacked Cody Rhodes in the first place. And coming out of this show and the finish of this match, I guess we never will. Or I guess it was just a situation where Brock just didn't respect Cody Rhodes, and now he does. Because in this match, Brock basically whooped Cody Rhodes' ass for a couple of minutes. And it just got very brutal, got very uncomfortable. He hit Cody with an F5 onto the floor on the outside. He hit him with an F5 through the announce table. All these times, Cody is getting knocked down and getting thrown around and getting abused and just whooped around by Brock. He keeps getting back up. He breaks the count. He gets back in the ring. He's fighting back until he does start to really fight back. He even manages to lock Brock Lesnar in a Kimura lock of his own. And for a second, I thought Brock Lesnar was going to tap out. I thought for a second he was going to tap out, just for a nanosecond. But, of course, he didn't. He managed to break out of it. But Cody Rhodes did manage to beat Brock Lesnar. He hit him with three crossroads. He slipped out of an F5, hit him with 3 consecutive crossroads, and got the win. After the match, Brock Lesnar got back up. He took the gloves off. He walked over to Cody, got right in his face, and then extended his hand out for a handshake, and the two men shook hands. Brock even pulled Cody in to give him a man hug, and then he raised his arm in front of the crowd, and he shook his hand again, and he pointed at him, and he basically gave him the endorsement. So, a nice seal of approval from Brock Lesnar to Cody Rhodes. And for as much as I've been down on this feud, I have not really liked it all that much. And I was ready for it to be over here, and hopefully this is it. You would think that this would be it. And they did the right thing. They had Brock lose, they had Cody get the win, and they even had Brock go the extra mile of endorsing Cody Rhodes, shaking his hand and raising his arm. So all good things here. How we got to this point, not a big fan of, but the match itself, while brutal, I thought it was pretty enjoyable, and the finish was the right finish, and even the post-match stuff with Brock endorsing Cody, I thought all of that worked. By the way, this Cody-Brock match was the second match of the night, because Brock Lesnar clearly did not want to stay in Detroit any longer than he needed to, so he got his shit in and dipped out. Similar to the man who opened SummerSlam, that being Logan Paul. He opened the show with Ricochet. The two of them had a match that you would expect Logan Paul and Ricochet to have. Ricochet is so damn good in the ring. It gets so easily forgotten about because his booking is not the strongest. It has not been the strongest since he's been called up to the main roster, but he is still a damn good performer, and Logan Paul is way better than he has any given right to be. Logan Paul, just last year at SummerSlam last year was his very first singles match. And now you fast forward a year later, he's had a couple of matches under his belt, and each and every time he goes out there and he over-delivers. He is made for this, whether you like him or not. On a personal or professional level, whether you like this man or not, you cannot deny that he delivers when he's out in that ring. And he did that very same thing tonight. Logan Paul has been racking up a lot of big losses for himself over the last few months, though, in a lot of his big matches. So he was due for a win. And he got that win on this show after one of his, associates or whatever, slipped him a pair of brass knucks, and he was able to take down Ricochet with the power of the punch, and he got the cheap win. But it was a win nonetheless. So good for Logan Paul here. Hopefully he made it in time to see his brother Jake in his UFC fight in Dallas tonight. So good for him. Speaking of people getting wins that desperately needed them, we had the Slim Jim SummerSlam Battle Royal sponsored by Slim Jim. WWE has entered a new partnership with Slim Jim, as evidenced by their commercial later on in the night with Bianca Belair and LA Knight, and a little nod to Randy Savage. That brought a smile to my face. But this Battle Royal was every kind of Battle Royal that you'll find. It was not bad, but it was not anything overly special. The big surprise of this match, a lot of people, there's been a lot of talk in recent weeks about there being a big surprise return on this show, because at SummerSlam these last couple of years, we've had a big name make some kind of big special return on the show. Well, we had our big return on this show in this very match. We had the return of Omos, who we have not seen on television since he lost to Seth Rollins at Backlash a few months ago in Puerto Rico. And much like there, Omos came out here, and while looking dominant for most of his night, he still lost when everyone in the ring ended up dumping him out. I'm not going to name every single person in this match, but you did have some stories forwarding with people like Austin Theory and Santos Escobar. You had some interaction with Grayson Waller and The Miz. So American Miz and Aussie Miz got to interact for a little bit here. You had Bronson Reed, Tommaso Ciampa, Shinsuke Nakamura out there. But ultimately, it came down to AJ Styles, Sheamus, and LA Knight. Styles got taken out by his latest feud, Karrion Kross. Then it came down to Sheamus and LA Knight, with LA Knight being the one to get the win, and much to the crowd's delight. They finally gave the people what they wanted to see. They didn't do it in London at Money in the Bank when LA Knight had the chance to win and he didn't. They didn't do it on SmackDown when LA Knight should have won the 4-way to advance to get a US Championship match in the future. Didn't do it there. But on this show, in a Battle Royal sponsored by a whole different company, where the winner, I'm sure, gets absolutely nothing. And this Battle Royal was completely pointless other than just getting a bunch of guys onto the show. Even still, I think that they made the right decision, and these people clearly wanted to see LA Knight get the win, and that's exactly what happened. So good job, WWE, for doing the right thing here. We had the Intercontinental Championship on the line. Gunther defending against Drew McIntyre. This was a really good match, but not that it was disappointing, but I was expecting a little bit more from these guys. We had a taste of what they were capable of in that triple threat that involved Sheamus at WrestleMania Night 2 earlier in the year. So I was expecting a little bit more from these guys, but for what they did, it was still a damn good match. And Gunther, he is just a money player right now. Drew McIntyre, we all know how good Drew McIntyre is, but Gunther is just on another level right now with this IC title run, and he is little under a month away from breaking the Honky Tonk Man's record of becoming the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion. With it being this close, of course it made sense for him to get the win here, which he did. He managed to knock off McIntyre, laid him out with a big splash off the top. Actually, both men were up top, and he pushed Drew off the top, and Drew crotched himself on the top rope. So he was down, and then Gunther was up top, hit him with a splash, hit him with a lariat, and then hit him with a power bomb to get the win. So Gunther, still your Intercontinental Champion. And in the weakest match of the entire night, we had MMA Rules with Shayna Basler and Ronda Rousey. Given these two characters and given their mixed martial arts background, an MMA Rules stipulation made sense. However, it just did not really resonate all that much with the live crowd and with a lot of people online that I saw. Not a lot of people were digging this match. Some were, and a lot of people did feel that the crowd apathy, I guess is the nicest way to put it, did not really help this match. It's unfortunate. The two women, like, they were working hard. It's not like they don't know how to do what they're doing. They clearly do. All the grappling and maneuvering that they were doing, it was all solid work from the two of them. But it just was not really entertaining to the fans. And I tweeted this out, and I said this a few times. When it comes to a show like this is a WWE pay-per-view. This is a pro wrestling show. Whether it's WWE, whether it's AEW, whether it's Impact, whether it's New Japan, these are pro wrestling companies putting on pro wrestling shows. And more often than not, the people who attend these shows or buy these pay-per-views or watch these shows on TV, they are expecting wrestling. For a WWE show, people are expecting WWE. They are not expecting to see MMA. They're not expecting to see UFC. Again, I completely understand why that was a stipulation here. It made perfect sense for it to be the stipulation. But you also can't argue that with a stipulation like that, you're not going to get a whole lot of great large interest from these fans. And the fans clearly were not overly enthusiastic about this match. They were chanting boring and probably some other stuff, but they just did not really seem all that into it. And Shayna getting the big decisive win over Ronda kind of went over like a fart in church. I mean, they reacted to it. They did, but it didn't feel as impactful as I'm sure these women were hoping that it would. But nevertheless, Shayna Basler did get the win. She did not tap out Ronda. Instead, she passed out Ronda. Ronda passed out to the Karafuda clutch. But this was the most decisive loss that Ronda Rousey has suffered in her WWE career. There's been rumors and speculation on the future of Ronda Rousey. I'm not sure if this was the last of her in a WWE ring that we will see. If it is, this latest run that when she came back at the Rumble last year, wasn't a huge fan of it. Wasn't a huge fan of her overall in-ring work, aside from a couple of matches here and there. Her overall in-ring work and her promo work and her character work just was not really up to snuff for me. But you know what? I think back to her initial run back in 2018 and a lot of the good matches that she had during that run, and I look back quite fondly on that. So if this is the last we see of Ronda, she did what she could to put over her friend here going out. So good on her. Another thought after this match was that, boy, with this match and the reaction to it, all those people who were upset and complaining about Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch being left off this show probably feel quite justified seeing how this match turned out. But as for Shayna, I don't expect her to get this big babyface push, but I can say Rhea Ripley is the women's world champion, and she's going to need some bodies to go through. She's going to need some credible competition to face. And someone like Shayna Baszler, who got a decisive, dominant win over Ronda Rousey on pay-per-view. Rhea Ripley didn't even wrestle on this pay-per-view, but Shayna Baszler did, and she won. She beat Ronda Rousey, one of the biggest names in the women's division. She got a clean victory over her. So Shayna Baszler is someone who you can build up to eventually challenge Rhea Ripley for the championship, get a match or two on pay-per-view out of it. So, just saying. So overall, I did like this show. I do give it a thumbs up. I was overall entertained. But the finish of that main event, with Jimmy Uso coming out and the implications for the storyline with the Bloodline going forward, just not a fan. Just not a fan. If you're still into it, if you can't wait to see what's coming up next, kudos to you. As for me, obviously I'm going to still watch. I'm not going to stop watching. But I'm just saying, I just hope that they can make me care about it and make me look at it like, you know what, I was wrong. They did take this into a very interesting way, an interesting direction that makes a lot of sense and is really entertaining to see. There's no doubt in my mind when we do eventually get a Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso match on pay-per-view, it's going to be really great. It's going to kick ass. But until then, all I have is the moment that we saw tonight and was not a big fan. But I will not hold it completely against this show, only slightly, not completely. There is still enough good on the rest of this card to make up for it. So, overall, thumbs up effort for SummerSlam 2023, and that's about it for me. If you like what you saw and you like what you heard, go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment down below what you thought of the show, what you thought of the cash-in, what you thought of a lot of the big stuff on this show. Do you feel different about the Jimmy Uso swerve at the end? Do you share my feelings? Whatever you think about it, leave a comment down below and discuss it. And if you want to get in touch with me, or if you want to keep up with me, follow me on Twitter at DerekJ Speaks. And that's about it for me now. Hope you all have a good rest of your day, rest of your evening, whenever, wherever you're listening to it. I hope you're doing well. And that's about it. Peace out.